Hello mystery readers, Corinne Smith here once again talking about books, and I've got a few suggestions for a few more mystery series that you might want to dip into. Today I want to share with you some books where real life literary characters are the folks who are trying to solve the mysteries. And I will have a giveaway at the end of this program, so you may want to stick with it. If you are watching before noon on Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. That's my teaser. Now, last time when I was talking about the mystery series by Susan Wittick Albert, 4 of them that she's written, I talked about the Cottage Tales of Beatrix Potter, one of her series. There are 8 books in this finished series with no more titles forthcoming. These are set in the Lake District of England, and they feature Beatrix Potter, the English children's author and illustrator and creator of the Peter Rabbit stories. Okay, they also feature other human characters, and animals who talk to one another. First book in the series is called The Tale of Hilltop Farm. Last book in the series is The Tale of Castle Cottage. And it's a charming and fun series. I talked about it a lot more in that previous video. So that's The Cottage Tales of Beatrix Potter. And after talking about that, it got me thinking, what other books have I read where a real life author is one of the characters in the book? Well, I figured out 4 mystery series that I have read in the past and that I thought I would share with you today. The authors here, the featured characters, all happen to be American. And the stories themselves are told in a variety of different ways. We will approach these 4 series in chronological order because not only are they mysteries, but they are also examples of historical fiction. So, first up are the Henry David Thoreau Mysteries by B.B. Oak. Surely you didn't think I could go through one program without mentioning my hero, Henry David Thoreau. So, the Henry David Thoreau Mysteries by B.B. Oak. B.B. Oak is a shortened name for the husband and wife team of Ben and Beth Oak, and they wrote 3 of these mysteries: Thoreau at Devil's Perch, Thoreau on Wolf Hill, and Thoreau in Phantom Bog. Now, these stories take place in eastern Massachusetts in the 1840s. Of course, we know Henry David Thoreau as being a naturalist and being the author of the book Walden and the essay Civil Disobedience. But these take place before he ever did those kinds of things and before he was famous, because he wasn't famous in his lifetime anyway. So, Thoreau lived and was from Concord, Massachusetts. Here, the authors decided not to intrude on the real-life Concord, so they created a fictional town like it called Plumford. Get it? Concord grapes? Plums. Plumford. Okay. It's kind of like the real Concord, but not exactly. And in doing this, they can manage the landscape any way they want to. They don't have to worry about what is real and true to life to real Concord. So that's artistic license. It's perfectly fine to do that kind of thing. So, although Henry Thoreau is a main character in this series, 2 other characters take center stage. Adam Walker is a local doctor, and his cousin Julia Bell is a very curious and independent woman. And whenever something untoward happens, Adam and Julia both want to figure out what happened, usually on their own. Somehow along the way, Henry Thoreau always gets pulled into the investigation. He always gets involved because he's good at puzzling things out, and he's very good at close observation. So, all 3 books are told in first person, and they alternate chapters between Adam and Julia. Okay? Henry's included in the investigations, but he is not telling the story. Adam and Julia tell the story. And so we hear their points of view and their perspectives, which are often different from one another. So that's kind of interesting. And we get to see these characters grow along the way, Henry and Adam and Julia, in these 3 stories. Now, these may not necessarily be the coziest of mysteries. Sometimes the scenes are kind of grisly. After all, it was the 1840s. I think of the 4 series I'm showing you today, this one might be the most serious of the bunch. Still, it's really cool reading, and historical fiction and mystery all at the same time. So that's B.B. Oak and the Henry David Thoreau Mysteries. 3 books in that series. Next up, we have somebody who was actually friends with Henry David Thoreau, and that is Louisa May Alcott. And we have the Louisa May Alcott Mysteries by Anna Maclean, 3 books in the series. We know Louisa most for being the author of Little Women and of its sequels. And the 3 books here are Louisa and the Missing Heiress, Louisa and the Country Bachelor, and Louisa and the Crystal Gazer. These 3 books are set in the 1850s, but there's actually kind of a twist with that timing. Because at the beginning of each one of these books, Louisa writes to us as the readers, and she dates the letter in the 1880s. So she's near the end of her life. This is the framework for this series. She's near the end of her life, and she's looking back on things that happened in the past. And you know, there were some mysterious circumstances that happened in her past, and now she's got the time to write about them. So that's the framework and the premise of these 3 books. These books are all told in first person by Louisa. They are not set in Concord, Massachusetts, even though we kind of identify Louisa with Concord because she lived there too for a long time. But in the time that these books were written, the Alcott family had not yet moved to Concord. Okay, so this Louisa is just as exuberant and as exasperating as Jo March is in Little Women. So it's a lot of fun to read. She keeps you going, and that's Anna Maclean's Louisa May Alcott Mysteries. 3 of them. Okay, so far we've had 3 Henry David Thoreau Mysteries, 3 Louisa May Alcott Mysteries. Those are complete series, sadly. There are no more episodes forthcoming. And I wonder, have you ever stumbled upon series like that, where you get hooked on the characters and you really want to keep on going, and then you find out there's only 3 books. Only 3 books. I mean, at least you have 3. Why is that, do you think? Have you ever wondered that? Because there's a lot of 3-book series out there. Well, time was when some publishers would be willing to take a risk and take a chance on a new unknown author if they make a 3-book deal. Okay? And then after those 3 books are done and out there in the public, a decision can be made. Either the publisher can stop the series, or the writer can stop the series. For the publisher, it could depend on readership and popularity, and of course on sales. For the writer, it could depend on whether they have more plot ideas and whether they still want to keep writing about those characters. So it's not necessarily that they got 3 strikes and they're out. It's more like they got up to bat 3 times and they didn't necessarily hit a home run, or they didn't hit 3 home runs. Okay. Nevertheless, at least we have 3 books in these series. Okay, let's keep on going. Keep that in mind. Let's keep on going. So, next up is the Mark Twain Mystery Series by Peter J. Heck. These take place in the 1890s, and there are 6 books in the series. 6! Yes! 6 books in this series, the Mark Twain Mysteries. And the fun starts right away with the titles of these books, because each one of them is a spoof on a real Mark Twain book. Here they are. Death on the Mississippi, A Connecticut Yankee in Criminal Court, The Prince and the Prosecutor, The Guilty Abroad, The Mysterious Strangler, and Tom's Lawyer. I mean, Tom's Lawyer. How can you not think that's funny right off the bat? So, in the beginning of this one, the premise here is that William Wentworth Cabot is a young man who just graduated from Yale College, and he is looking for a job. And so he applies, and he gets the position of traveling secretary to Samuel L. Clemens, Mark Twain. Okay, now Wentworth, he's a Yale man, He's never actually read any Mark Twain books. He really doesn't know anything about this guy that he's signing on to work with. So he's learning and being amazed over and over again as he goes. He didn't know that Twain Clemens was a humorist and that people were supposed to be laughing at him in his audiences. Wentworth at first felt sorry for him in his performances that people were laughing and didn't quite get the jokes. So Wentworth tells these stories in first person as he and Sam go wherever they go. And through this series, they go along the Mississippi, they go out to Montana, down to New Orleans, they cross the Atlantic Ocean, they go to England and Italy. They're sort of like Sherlock Holmes and Watson, really. Not really. But whenever anything untoward happens, both of them are trying to figure out what's going on. Okay, and obviously Sam has more experience in that kind of thing than Wentworth does. Wentworth is learning along the way. So Sam Clemens is an interesting person to follow around, and Wentworth turns out to be a good storyteller too. So these are pretty much fun. This is Peter J. Heck and his 6-book series, The Mark Twain Mysteries. These you can find, I think, in both hardcover and paperback. At least that's my experience. I'm not sure if the whole series is that way, but again, there's 6 books in that series. And lastly, for today, we have the Algonquin Round Table Mysteries by J.J. Murphy, John Murphy. And these books are set in Manhattan in the 1920s. And they focus on the writers who made up the informal group known as the Algonquin Round Table, because they got together for lunch at the Algonquin Hotel and they sat at the big round table in the dining room because there were a lot of them. And the group includes, maybe you don't know these names, but I'm going to rattle them off for you: Robert Benchley, Alexander Walcott, Robert Sherwood, Haywood Brown, George S. Kaufman, Franklin P. Adams, Mark Connolly, Russell Krauss, and then there's Harold Ross, who keeps saying that he wants to create a magazine for smart city folks, and eventually he will, eventually he does. It's called The New Yorker. So if you don't recognize those names, that's okay. You'll learn about these people as you go. The main character here is author Dorothy Parker. She is mostly the person who gets caught up whenever something untoward happens, and she wants to figure out what's going on because the local New York authorities don't always seem to know what they're doing. So she often grabs Robert Benchley to accompany her on her informal investigations. And so we have 3 books in this series: Murder Your Darlings, You Might As Well Die, and A Friendly Game of Murder. Again, all set in Manhattan in the 1920s. These are just plain fun too, because even though all these writers are friends, sometimes they're competitive among each other and they're snarky and they snipe at each other almost all the time. They make puns in pretty much every conversation, even when they're being chased by the bad guys. Even when the bad guys catch them and threaten to kill them, they're still making fun of each other. They're still making puns to the bad guys. It's really, really interesting. And other famous people of the day happen to show up because they were in the same place at the same time, really, too. People like Douglas Fairbanks and Harpo Marx and William Faulkner. I mean, really. So I had a chance to meet the author, John Murphy, a number of years ago, and to get him to sign the 2 books that I own. He actually had a stamp, too, made with one of Dorothy Parker's most notable quotes: "This is not a book to be tossed aside lightly. It should be thrown with great force." And in talking to John at the time, he was wondering whether the book series was going to continue after the 3. And he was already, I think, getting hints from the publisher that it was not going to continue, which is too bad. Because I have to say that I have read all of these series. I read a couple of them to prepare for this video, reread a couple of them, so I would remember what I would be talking about. And I think out of all of them, this is the one that I most regret that it's not more than 3 books. So John, if you're out there, or publishers, if you're out there, boy, if you could give us some more Dorothy Parker, that would be great. 3, it's not quite enough. It's good, it's not quite enough. Dorothy Parker is a hoot. Okay, and all of the authors of these books, you know, when you write historical fiction, you have to know your characters. You have to know these real life people. You have to know about the times. You have to know about the culture. I think they all did their homework and portray all of these things realistically. So, you know, historical fiction and mystery. And maybe reading these books will prod readers to go read about these authors, you know, Thoreau, Louisa, Dorothy Parker, Mark Twain, because as we all know, we never read in a vacuum. Every book we read invariably leads us to another, and another, and another, and another. And one just fell on the floor. So anyway, those are my mystery series recommendations for you today. Now, I promised you a giveaway. Here's the giveaway. The Mark Twain Mysteries. I got 1 from the library, but the other 5 are up for grabs. 1 hardback that is an ex-library book, and 4 paperbacks that are in excellent condition because I just bought them off eBay. So, if you would like 5 Mark Twain Mysteries by Peter J. Heck, please leave a comment below. Say that you're interested in them, and we will do a cat lottery on Thursday, February 23rd, 2023, afternoon Eastern Time. And a cat lottery means all of the people that are going to write below and say they're interested, I'll put names on pieces of paper. I will throw them onto the kitchen floor, and my cat, Jackie Blue, will walk towards one and pick the winner. Okay, so 5 of the 6 Mark Twain mysteries, you're going to have to find a Connecticut Yankee in criminal court somewhere else. So that's what you're playing for today. If you're watching after February 23rd, sorry, I'll have to think of another giveaway another time. So, have you read any of these series? What did you think? Did you like Dorothy Parker? Like Louisa? You know, all of these are really interesting, and you learn historical fiction. You learn stuff that you didn't learn in history class in school, right? You learn about these authors, you learn about the times, what was going on. It's great. And 4 different time periods, 1840s, 1850s, 1890s, 1920s. Cool beans, cool beans. Okay, that's what I wanted to tell you about today. Till next time then, I'm Corinne Smith. Now, turn off this silly computer and go read a good book, for heaven's sakes.